Literature often allows us to travel far beyond where we physically are. Our next session takes us across continents on a poetic journey to Africa. For this session, we have with us Abhay K, a poet, diplomat, and an author whose works have appeared in over 100 literary journals worldwide. His poetry collection, The Alphabets of Africa, celebrate the continent's cultures, landscapes, and histories. His well-known poem, The Earth Anthem, has been translated into more than 160 languages. He's also the author of the best-selling book, Nalanda, How It Changed the World, and currently serves as India's ambassador to Azerbaijan. In conversation with him is Aloke Shah, a well-known cultural figure from Nainital, who has long been involved in social and philanthropic activities in the region. Please join me in welcoming Abhay K and Aloke Shah to the stage.
Thank you for that introduction. And Abhay, welcome once again to Nainital. I think I met you last time when you were here after the publication of Nalanda, which has been a bestseller. And I was so happy that you came and met me when I was buying your book. And you introduced yourself to me and were so kind as to have a photograph taken along with me. So when Amitabh asked me to, be on this session, I was so happy because, I had seen how kind and nice you were. And this wonderful book that you have written, it explores the whole continent, and it is a work of love, a work of dedication, and I think a lot of scholarship, which has been commented upon in your last effort also. In Nalanda, I remember that William Dalrymple and even Shashi Tharoor had commented so highly on the kind of scholarship that you had portrayed in that book. So the first thing that I would like to ask you is, this work is obviously a work of love, a work of dedication, and a lot of hard work and a lot of scholarship, and surely a lot of travel. So what I would like to ask you is, how much travel and how much hard work was involved in writing this book?
Well, I wrote this book. It took me almost 5 years to complete this book, and when it was published early this year in January, it just came after Nalanda, and people were commenting, "How are you producing books so quickly?" But it takes lots of time to write books. Books you really love, books which you are passionate about. So this book is actually, not just traveling, my travels across Africa, but also, this a deep reading of writers from Africa. Not only reading the works of African writers, but also watching documentaries and experiencing Africa and then responding to it. So it's not just a kind of a travelogue, what I saw, what I felt, but it's also a kind of a deep dialogue with Africa's great contributions in shaping modernity, in fact. Most of us think that Africa is some far away place, and mostly it's a place which is very hot, and most of the bad things that happen, they happen in Africa. But if you think of it, we human beings are actually an African species. We migrated out of Africa, and in a way, we are all Africans. We have African genes. So that realization, I think, is very important to have for us, and Africa's contributions, in the sense that we take everything for what we see around us for granted. But if you think of for example, the coffee you drink every day, that actually originates in Ethiopia, and the traffic light, which helps us to regulate our daily movement. That's invented by someone called Garrett Morgan, an African American. The jazz music we love so much, originates among the immigrants of Africa in New Orleans, in southern part of the United States. So not only these, there are several great, Coca-Cola, for example. If you love Coca-Cola, actually, and you would think that it comes from United States, but the cola nuts actually originate in Africa. You have talking of diplomacy. The first peace treaty, the surviving peace treaty, actually is between Ramses II and Hattusili III, and it was concluded in 1259 BCE. The world's, the first diplomatic letters are actually the Amarna letters, and which are considered the world's first diplomatic correspondence, was between the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten and Mitanni king Tusharatta. So we have these, great examples of civilization beginning in Africa. The Mundane Charter, for example, of the 13th century from the West Africa is one of the oldest oral constitutions. So we have so many examples. General Hannibal, for example, if you see, who crossed Alps to invade Rome. Massinissa. There's so many heroes and heroines who are deeply ignored in global history. They actually come from Africa.
That's wonderful. And yes, as you have mentioned, your scholarship covers not only history, it goes, in fact, right from prehistory. And it covers history, it covers geography, it covers culture, it covers inventions, and so many different things. And obviously, there's a lot of hard work and a lot of reading and a lot of scholarship that has gone into it. And you have talked about some of the icons, the literary icons of my youth, like T.S. Eliot. You have structured one of your poems on a poem by Prufrock, a poem by T.S. Eliot. And I was surprised to find in this, although I was expecting you to mention Nelson Mandela or, so many other icons, black icons, but I was surprised to find the mention of Albert Camus there. I was wondering, how did you come across that?
Well, so Albert Camus is one of the defining figures of African literature, and his book L'Étranger, The Stranger, is actually, I think, read by everybody who is in college or university, and his life itself was so tragic, itself, and I find him as a significant alphabet of Africa, and that's why he finds a place in this. And there is, in fact, a poem about him, which begins with he was actually part of the French. He was actually a French citizen, but he was known as Pied Noir, and Pied Noir were the persons of European origin who lived in Algeria during French rule, and especially one who returned to Europe after Algeria gained independence from France. So he was a stranger, a rebel, actually, and I have a poem on him in this book.
Would you like to read from that?
So it begins with a quote. In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invisible summer. Albert Camus. The Pied Noir, progeny of poor parents, the stranger, the rebel, the moralist, the anarchist, the communist, the surrealist, the existentialist, the liberal socialist, or non-nihilist. Call me whatever you like. On the fateful day I died, I could have traveled by train with my wife and children, but I chose to travel with my friend in his fancy new car, only to meet my end in a road accident with a train ticket in my pocket.
That's wonderful.
Would you
And
call it a choice or destiny?
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. And that was an aspect of Camus that I was not familiar with. And because The Stranger, as you see it, that was, a book we all read in our youth, and it influenced a whole lot of our thinking. So, why did you suddenly take up the subject of a whole continent, from ranging from one end of that the north and right down to the south, from the history? What brought you to this subject?
Well, I thought that Africa is an underdog, and the job of a poet is to become the voice of the voiceless. So poets actually, speak in the voices of those who cannot speak for themselves, and so here, you will find that poems are in first person. They are not, for example, here is a poem about Abdul Razak Gurna. Yesterday I saw that there were lots of rumors that he has passed away, actually. But, he's very much alive. Those of you who know Gurna, and who champions the work of immigrants. And and here's a poem. I recently met him at in Kochi, in Kozhikode, at the Kerala Literature Festival, and it was such a coincidence that the book actually begins with a poem on him, and he was so chuffed reading the poem that he hinted to his wife that she should read it. And it's here's the poem. I began writing out of homesickness to document my thoughts, experiences of being a refugee in another land, memories of departure, the trauma of displacement kept haunting me. I tried my bit to alter English language and literature, calmly resisting the attempts of the editors to make the alien seem alien, writing of the state's broken promises, the lasting effects of colonialism, the lost homeland, the paradise of Zanzibar, alienation, loneliness of an immigrant.
Very good. That reminds me of that, not only have you spoken about other people's experiences, tried to get into other people's, shoes, and historical figures, cultural figures, political figures. You have written about them. But you have also written, in some cases, your poems have been about your personal experiences, about your, suddenly, your experience at witnessing the migration at Masai Mara. You have suddenly jumped into very philosophical kind of, feelings about the migration the migration of humans. In fact, you have jumped into that. And there have been very other personal kind of things, poems and those have been very impressive. Would you like to read from some of those?
Well, so this is a poem about a chameleon in Madagascar. So this is another someone who is voiceless and can't speak about himself. So I wrote a poem about the chameleon, and the poem is called Madagascar Chameleon. He had fallen down from a tree, perhaps meeting his end. I had seen him a month or two ago on the tennis court lying on the floor. A loud thud had alerted me of something falling in the morning. I had thought it must be a fruit. Then in the evening I saw him lying on the ground. He was large and regal, his eyes following me carefully. I kept gazing at him in awe of his splendor. He was the same chameleon I had seen about a year ago, reclining on a tree in my orchard. He must have grown old, I thought. I wanted to save him from getting hurt, from the tennis ball. So I gently tried prodding him to go across the fence and camouflage in the green trees where no one could see him. He remained still for a while and then climbed the fence and disappeared. Weeks passed by before I saw him again, lying on the ground on the other side of the fence, completely white and motionless. He still looked majestic. I thought he must be resting, pretending he's dead. The next day I went there again to see if he was gone. Not finding him there at first glance, I was relieved. Then I saw him lying on a bed of foliage. Fallen leaves had given him a natural shroud. Birds singing, wind caressing him, gentle sun rays balming his body. Here rested someone whose life and death I could envy.
The sensitivity of a poet. Yes. How big, how large was this chameleon though?
It's quite large. Madagascar chameleons are large.
And you say a large thud.
Yeah,
that
it's
kind.
like, yeah, it's quite, I think it's this.
Okay, okay. There's another poem that I came across, which kind of encapsulates your entire philosophy about Africa or your feelings for Africa, and that is a poem whose first lines were that where you see darkness, I see light.
Yeah.
Would you like to read from there?
Yes. So Africa is often called as the dark continent. And I mean, India is not far from that, but Indians do feel that, Africans are very different. Actually, originally this book was titled In Light of Africa, because I wanted to, rubbish that or, to set aside that narrative, because that's not factually true. So this is a poem called Africa, actually, and it's a poem is titled Light of Africa. And it's actually inspired by Octavio Paz's book In Light of India, which is actually a very beautiful book. If you get a chance, please do read that. Where you see darkness, I see light. Light of Ubuntu, light of Alexandria, light of Timbuktu, light of Great Zimbabwe, light of Benin bronzes, light of Luxor and Carthage, light of Lalibela, light of Mandela, light of Chinua Achebe, light of Jean Joseph Raveri Velo, light of Signor and Soinka, light of Zara Yaqub, light of Diababa sisters, light of Mansa Musa, light of Haile Ferris, Hatshepsut Nefertari, light of Haile Selassie and Rastafari, light of Tutu and Ben Nbonbu, light of Sundiata Keita, light of lots of names here, but they're all important. Light of Garrett Morgan, light of Lucy, light of gold, diamonds, and myriad riches, light of pharaohs and pyramids, lights of the colorful Cuba, light of coffee and cocoa, light of bountiful gifts offered by Africa. Where you see darkness, I see light. Where you see horror, I see wonder. Where you see primitiveness, I see wisdom. Where you see darkness, I see light of Africa.
One thing mentioned over there was Lalibela.
Right.
Lalibela, you have mentioned somewhere. They have these churches made carved out of the rock
11.
side. 11 churches carved out of the rock side. I'm sure you have seen them yourself. Do they compare in any way with our own Kailash and things like that?
Well, I mean, so King Lalibela was a 12th, 13th century monarch in Ethiopia, and he was most famous for commissioning the construction of 11 rock-hewn churches in the city of Lalibela, which is named after him. And obviously, they are very massive, and they are still very important. They are very sacred. So lots of people actually go and visit these churches. And here's a poem. Actually, Lalibela is an important city in Ethiopia, and lots of pilgrims visit that. A descendant of Agwas of Ethiopian highlands, I built a new home for Christianity after the fall of Jerusalem. Born as the lord of bees, surrounded by them at birth, when my half-brother Harb got me poisoned, angel Gabriel himself came to take me to heaven, where God showed me 11 rock-hewn churches and asked me to recreate them on earth. I returned with a mission, but Harb got me captured and whipped. Miraculously unscathed, I fled to Jerusalem. Harb had a change of heart. He relinquished the throne and proclaimed me the king. Following the divine command, my men dug trenches in the rugged mountains and carved out of a single rock, 11 monolithic churches.
I was wondering what it would be like. Okay, we have. I'm getting signs that we are coming to the close of this session. So, if anybody has any questions, we'd invite you to please ask them from Abhay, who's here to answer.
Jomo Kenyatta.
The president of Kenya.
Right. So we have several. I mean, I have other people from Kenya. For example, Bangari Maathai, who was the first, who founded the Green Belt movement, and also Ngugi wa Thiong'o, who recently passed away, and there are other figures from Kenya. So but there are lots of people in these pages. Please do read the book. You will love it. It's just amazing. It's there at the bookstore.
Thank you for that lovely poetry, Chameleon. And my introduction to your work actually comes from your being the editor of the Bihari book of the Book of Bihari Literature. I'm also familiar with your writings on Latin America, and now you're writing on Africa. So you seem to have your heart in many places. Is there a favorite amongst all these wanderings?
Well, I mean, at this moment, it's Nainital. But I do love Nainital. It has why? Because there's a public library here, just right beside the lake, and I think it's a beautiful place, surrounded, lake in amidst mountains, surrounded by mountains. I think that's truly scenic and beautiful, and I think lots of bookstores are in the city, so that shows that people are reading.
Yeah, and, for a small place, we have lots of bookstores.
Yes, and that's really, remarkable about this place, that Nainital being such a, being a scenic place, being a tourist place, also has a great reading culture, and has two festivals. In fact, I had the opportunity to also be in the other Himalayan Echoes Lit Fest, and this is where I talked about my other book, Nalanda, and how it changed the world. So these books are here, I do try to write about the places which are usually not written about. So, for example, Latin America, I have another book called The Alphabets of Latin America, which takes you across Latin America. This book is not just modern Africa, but, it's a journey through space and time. 5,000 years of history of Africa is brought alive in this book. Please do get a chance, if you can, to read it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abhay. And thank you very much, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, both of you, for that poetic journey across cultures, landscapes, and histories. Abhay K's books are available at the bookstall, and he will be there for book signing. So please take the opportunity to go and get your copies signed. May I now request Indu Pandeyji to kindly come forward for the felicitation of our speakers. As I mentioned, the speakers are available after their sessions at the bookstall for book signing. At this moment, we would also like to extend our thanks to our creative partners, Varati Foundation and Gauraiya Atithya, for their support in bringing this festival to life.